Alright, chances are you're probably on this video because you're looking to find a cheap setup, turbo setup for your Nissan 350Z with a 2JZ swap. Now, chances are you've also been watching this channel for a while and either you're stuck in the same spot that I've been or you're well ahead of that at this point. If you're not and you're new and you're actually looking to find a low budget quality setup, I'm going to walk you through everything that I chose and I can assure you that it will fit in the car. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm out here in front of the car and I was going to show you guys the engine bay so we could see where we're starting at. So I've got my 2JZ GT in here, and as you can see there's no manifold, nothing in there, just the gasket that goes between. So as I mentioned in a previous video, or actually I think the last couple of videos prior to my car review, this right here is a M101 Treadstone 2JZ GTE manifold. I'm pretty sure they make this for the GE model as well, so you can probably get the similar thing, or the same thing I should say, for a GE cylinder head as well, and it'll have the T4 flange for a larger size turbo. I'm assuming that's what most of you guys want to go with. So my goal for this car is around 500 horsepower. So I got a turbo that would be set up for that, and it came with a T4 flange on the turbo and on this manifold. I'm going to set that guy right there for now. Okay, and so next to the manifold here, I've got the turbo pieces. You can just ignore the throttle body. That doesn't have anything to do with this. This is the compressor housing here and the core, and then this is the turbine housing for my BorgWarner turbo. So this is an SX200, actually probably right on the turbo, S200SX. Anyways, this is the turbo I went with. This is a relatively decent sized turbo. It's rated up to around 500 horsepower, and I know it's going to fit in the car because I test fitted a similarly sized turbo in there that I borrowed from a friend. The only issue with that turbo is that it did not have the T4 flange that bolts onto that manifold there. So those of you who might know a little bit more about cars can see that this is a twin scroll turbine housing here, and that's the only option I could find available in this aspect ratio, or area to surface ratio I should say would be the proper term, for this turbine housing by BorgWarner. So as you can see, the manifold is a single volute here, and this is a twin volute. And I'm sure that Precision, Garrett, probably plenty of other manufacturers out there that make a single scroll turbine housing that'll fit a T4 bolt pattern, but this is the turbo I ended up going with because it was a really good price for what it was. I think I paid about $800 to $900 for the entire turbo, including the compressor housing, core, and turbine housing, which a lot of other turbo manufacturers don't have anything at that price point. Now granted, this is like a standard bearing turbo. It's not like a ball bearing turbo, which the really nice ones are, but this will do the job. It should last a decent amount of time, and for around $800-900 honestly it's worth it. And this manifold over here is I think around just under $500, so I'm less than $1,500 in on turbo and manifold for right now. So most other places you'll be paying probably upwards of $1,000 just for the turbo, and since this is a cast manifold, it's going to be significantly cheaper than something that's been, let's say, welded, handmade, and or billet, if they have anything that's along the lines of billet steel or whatever. Yeah, but anyways, it's basically a great price point for a set of parts from two very well-renowned manufacturers who make quality stuff. So you may have noticed that this has grind marks on it, and this also has grind marks on it. The reason for that being, when I purchased the BorgWarner, it came with this gasket here for a twin scroll setup, and if I set it up here, you can actually see that the gasket itself is bigger than the volutes on the turbine. I think this gasket's made for the largest size of turbo, the largest size of volute that fits a T4. Now this turbo was a 1 area to radius ratio, so it was probably a lot smaller than this gasket, and therefore I had to grind the edges down to create a smooth radius in which the air can flow past. And after that I realized that, hey, this might be different too. So I came over here and I marked that to see that the manifold itself was actually quite a bit smaller as well. Not as bad as the turbo, but it still needed an adjustment. And then I went to look for a gasket that was just like this twin scroll gasket right here, and I realized that they don't make a single scroll gasket, which means there's no fin in the middle, in this exact size. So unfortunately, all the ones for sale in the market are too small in the center, having given the fact that I already ground this out wider to match this one. So now I have to make a gasket to fit this, and that's where this piece comes in. This is the Felramic gasket making material by Felpro. This should be good enough to hold up to the heat that the turbo will be producing, hence the Ramic in the name indicates that this is made with ceramic. It's got a corrugated surface on both sides. It'll be probably pretty squishy, so that should seal pretty well, and it does have a thin layer of metal in the middle. So I'll be cutting this to match the shape of the turbo and the manifold, and I'm not 100% sure this is going to work, but I am going to give it a try, and I will let you guys know how it holds up. All right, this isn't exactly the flattest of surfaces, and I do hope you can hear me over the air compressor right now, but I'm basically just going to set the gasket that I was using as my template before on the corrugated material. I'm going to trace around the outside, kind of get myself a little rough template here. Obviously this doesn't have to be perfect. We'll start with that. So I'm just going to cut around it. I don't really know what would be the best way to cut it, but you'll see what I use here in a minute. All right, I'm going to try and start with a pair of very large and stiff scissors here. Seems to be doing the trick. Now you can just ignore this corner. It's not perfect, but we're just gonna ignore that. I still got to do the inside of the center there and punch out the holes, and I'm thinking a standard center punch should work, or a hole center punch I should say, of the right diameter, and then I will let you know what I figure out for this. Okay, quick little update. Hopefully you can hear me over the air compressor and the air gun. Here's the gasket. You can see that I took a punch to the 4 corners where the bolts will be sliding through, and I also took a punch to the center area where the radius would be for the 4 corners. So I used a 3/8 punch on these holes here on the corners for the bolts, and then this is a 3/4 inch punch for the radius on the inside hole. Okay, centerpiece cut out. There's our remaining gasket. It's just pinned to the foam through a couple of holes. Use the Dremel cutting wheel, cut it out. This is a lot better, more accurate, and honestly easier to use at cutting this than scissors. So that is the final method there, and that should be just about ready to go on the car. I might take a file and clean up some of the edges here that are sticking out a little farther. Cut everything out from the center with a Dremel, as you saw, and then I went ahead and took this tool over here. This is just a cutting tool, and I went around the outside perimeter and made it closer to the actual shape, because the lines I drew on there and cut out earlier were close but not perfect. And as you can see, that's much better. You can actually see the outside lines of the volutes there. On the manifold, you can actually see there's a little bit of a lip around the edge now where this isn't touching, which is good. That means there's going to be more air flowing through there without any resistance. The gasket won't be sticking out into the area where the air is going to be moving, so that's good.
I know a lot. You did a good job.
You just praised yourself.
I know.
For your first time doing it, it's like I did it, minus a few very, very small things. So yes, you did great. I'm not really sure which way I want this to face, because I don't know how the fabricators are going to want to have it. I mean, I guess they can handle a couple of 10mm bolts. By the way, this is a Tile Sport wastegate that I bought off of eBay used, so hopefully this thing works. I mean, it was $250 used. I'm pretty sure a new one's like $300, so they're not that expensive new, but I just wanted to make use of a decent part, not let it die. Plus the old one has some grunge on it, which is sick. A little bit of weathering and oxidation, or oxidization, I think would be the right word to use. I don't know what the right torque spec for these is, but I'm gonna go with really f***ing tight. Okay, tile wastegate is on. It's got a couple of vacuum lines here to go to the manifold. I'm not really sure how all this works. It's been a while since I've looked it up, a couple months, but step 1 of all of this is that, and it's done. So I'm going to move on to putting the manifold and the wastegate onto the car, and then I should be able to bolt the turbine housing to the manifold from there. So I think first step here, working on the car, will be removing the strut brace for ease of access and better viewership for you guys. Also, for like the 1 millionth time on this channel, airplanes and helicopters will be flying over, and they will be very annoying as per usual. Alright, so let's take this tape off. Hopefully nothing got into my engine. One thing about this guy that was really, really tedious before was getting the manifold set in, but not too tight yet, so I can get the bolts in the tough spots. That's actually really compact. I don't know if the camera can see that far down. No, it can't. I'll show you later. But the wastegate's sitting probably like 3 inches above the motor mount, 2.5 inches above the motor mount. So it's got really, really good clearance. So I've got a bunch of bolts that will go on this. Obviously the engine has studs that stick out for the majority of these holes, and then there's a few that you need bolts for. But there's certain spots where the holes are really, really hard hard to get to when the manifold is sitting completely flush against the cylinder head. So I like to pull it out so that the manifold is barely sitting on the studs and get the ones in those really, really tight spots. So I think this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. It might have 6. It does have 6. There's one here as well. So that's a bolt and that's a bolt. Stud, 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 stud. The one that's the hardest to get on is actually the stud that's right behind this flange here. Down in this corner, right behind this hole, there's a stud sticking out where you will place a nut on the stud sticking out of the cylinder head, and it is incredibly hard to get it on without having this almost all the way off. I actually get a really good shot of it in the last video where I do a test fit of this manifold. I'll just link that up here and you guys can click on it and take a quick look at that. It should be somewhere towards the middle of the video. Anyways, there's the wastegate. You can actually see that it's sitting pretty far above the motor mount. It's not touching anything. It's a great spot for it. And then the back side where it's going to be rerouted into the exhaust, that's the flange for that right there. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get the manifold bolted on since I gave you a quick verbal instruction on it, and then get back to you guys once that's bolted on. All of these bolts around the outside of the manifold are going to be 29 foot-pounds, so I've got a torque wrench that I'm going to use to do that. The 2 bolts on the inside, here and here, you're not really going to be able to get a torque wrench in there and torque those down, so good and tight will probably be just fine, hand tight as you can get it. Stone's just gonna have to be where it is because I cannot get my tool down there. Really unfortunate spot, and I don't know why they didn't design some kind of relief near there. I don't even know if you guys can see me right now.
Not really.
Light is kind of pointing at me. This looks very ominous. So my neighbor, Emilio, owns my old 240 SX. That's him over there. I don't know if he's gonna drive by or not, but maybe sometime soon you'll get to see that car.
That's good news.
I'm going to be putting this gasket on that I made, and I'm going to start with the turbine housing. I wish I was Scooby sometimes. Life would be better as a dog. Alright.
Like you're gonna bark. Life would be better as a dog.
Life would be better as a horse. This is going to be the fun part, because I got to get a gasket in there while holding this heavy ass.
Yeah, there's maybe 3 things in view right now, and one of them is this piece of tape and this warning label. There's a primer on my phone.
When she uses both hands, if I can get this guy in there, brother. Watching the real struggles. This would not be a Jacob Rossroy video without some sort of ridiculous bullshit struggling and excessive weather of some sort. Humidity, mosquitoes, high heat. High of 95 today, actually.
Hey Siri, what is the current humidity index? Oh, it's only 66.
Right now?
I guess, yeah, earlier it was definitely higher than that.
Now I gotta figure out how to thread one of these johns in. That is sitting. Also, I think this is facing the wrong direction, but we can adjust that at a later date because Jacob is tired of being outside and dying in mosquitoes. To my viewers, like, subscribe, and report. 1 like for every mosquito bite. We're gonna count them all afterward. And if this video doesn't reach 47 likes, if that's how many bites there are, I am quitting YouTube, and it's your fault. It appears as though a 17 does okay. It might be a 16, but this is working.
Number 15, Burger King foot lettuce. The last thing you want in your Burger King burger is someone's foot fungus. When this is done and over with, you should make a compilation video of all the times you went, "Ugh, what the fuck?" I think that'd be really fun.
Ew, what the fuck? Compowder?
Powder?
Dude, that's gonna be stuck in my head for the next like 45 years.
You know what tab it is.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Chocolate starfish.
Oh my god, Fred Durst, are you here?
Limp Bizkit, if you ever see this, give me permission to use your song as my outro, okay? That would make me the happiest boy on the planet. Okay, so the turbo's bolted on. We are filming this with 3% battery left on the camera and a fucking LED light. So this is the look you get until I get anything else done. So we're gonna stop for today. Tell Olivia thank you for helping out.
Thank you for helping out.
Thanks, Olivia.
You're welcome.
You need to get that checked out. Anyways, turbo's in. It's looking pretty freaking cool. I wish you guys could see better from this angle because it's so dark. Yeah, anyways, calling it for tonight, and then we will be coming back at it another day, and you will see that in like 0.2 seconds. So thank you. Turbo is in the car. You can just see it poking over the core support over there. Oh my god, over there. And then right here, I've got a bunch of different fittings that these are going to be going in the oil feed and drain positions on the engine. And also, if you had a 2JZ GTE, there's a fitting right here that has 2 holes in it, and that's the turbo drain tube, I guess would be the name for it. So the oil feed would feed into the twin turbos, and then they would drain into that hole and that hole. So that needs to come off since this is now a single turbo and there's only going to be 1 drain line instead of 2. So taking that off, and that will show you which one of the little pieces over there goes in that spot. Okay, so you can see that these two are identical. I'm pretty sure I accidentally ordered an extra, but this should be the one that goes in the drain tube spot right here. There's a bunch of gaskets. These two came with the kit of things. I just bought a generic oil feed kit for the 2JZ. Bought them for pretty cheap online, and they come with these gaskets here, and then the actual turbo, the BorgWarner turbo, comes with this gasket. Probably be using that one because I trust that one a lot more than these. For the part that bolts up to the block, I'm probably just going to use one of these gaskets and see how it holds up on the actual turbo. That's what I'll be using that one for. So this should be the one that connects to the turbo, I believe. So that should be the outlet for the drain there, and then this should be the inlet to the block. And then, if I remember correctly, this is the one that bolts to the turbo feed hole here. Yeah, it's got the really tiny pinhole. I don't know if I can get the camera to focus on that. Maybe if I do this. Yeah, you can see how small it is. Just barely see the turbo through it. I also think I purchased another one. Now, I think this is actually an adapter from my current oil feed line to this hose here, which is going to be the feed hose. I'll show you what the car's got right now. So, brightness permitting, I don't know how much I can get in here, or if at all. Yeah, it's pretty dark, but you can see a little 90-degree angle bend right there. And right where that 90-degree elbow is my Circuit Sports oil cooler to the left of that elbow. And to the top of that elbow is the line that goes around the back of the block. So it kind of just loops around the back side here, and it is just hanging right there. So I have an adapter for that to go to the turbo, and then obviously the little tiny feed line to kind of restrict the oil to keep it from overfilling, I should say. Now I'm on the topic of feed and drain. I'm actually pretty sure this core is upside down. I'm pretty sure that this is the drain side of the turbo and the feed is over here. So I'm gonna have to take the compressor off and rotate the core and then put the compressor back on. That way that this is in the correct orientation, because it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have my feed on the bottom and my drain on the top unless there's enough pressure for that to come over here and make it work. Anyways, I'll probably just rotate it because it'll probably be smarter. So yeah, I think I'm gonna loosen all the bolts on the back side of this guy, rotate it, and then get back to you guys. Okay, so I just took the core and the compressor off both. That way I could rotate this any way I wanted to, but also while I have it off, it's gonna be a lot easier to put on some of these fittings. This is going to be the drain side fitting, so you can tell a difference, pretty obvious difference between the size and shape of the flange. This is the obvious choice for this part right here. This is the drain side, and if I turn this around so you guys can see it, that's the feed side. It's just a little hole. So some turbos have 2 holes here and here, and that would be what this one would be for. So you would put that on there and it would bolt directly to that. This turbo is just a threaded NPT hole, so a fitting like this one right here would just thread in there and tighten down. I've actually got the one I'm going to use on the end of this one. We'll get that good gasket, put it on the back side of our drain fitting, rotate our turbo to where it needs to be, and hand thread it on for right now. I'm going to go grab an Allen key because that's what we're going to need to tighten that down. I don't know if I said this already, but be really careful around these edges because they are very sharp. Whoever manufactured this particular turbo did not do a good job at cleaning off the burrs on the end of the milled surfaces for the core. That pretty damn tight, so I'm pretty confident that's going to seal. And anyways, you can see that this is going to have a AN fitting thread onto it. It gives you little O-rings that go with it. It'd be really nice if it would thread on. In fact, I'm going to be upset if it doesn't, because this is what came with the kit. Okay, there we go. So like that. So we'll be able to put this on, tighten it down. O-ring will seal. This will also press up against the cone flange, this part, and seal up pretty damn good on the inside there. That way we know we won't have any leaks. I might change this out for the straight fitting, but we'll see. Not really sure how I want this set up yet. Anyway, it's going to rotate this around to the other side. This is going to be our feed line. So ideally, that's going to go there. I'll tighten it better with a wrench here in a minute. And this line is going to thread onto that, which I actually think I want the 90-degree side touching the turbo. That way I can kind of rotate this part around if I need to. Okay, I'm back outside with the Z again. This is yet another day. As you can see, there is a gasket on this already because I completely forgot that I had an OEM gasket in between my turbo drain hose already. So I'm just going to take the little thing that goes on there and bolt it on real quick. I know I'm sure there's an exact torque spec for this, but I forgot it. It's been so long since I built this. So we're gonna go as tight as I can get it right now by hand. Probably good enough there. Now I think I'm gonna get the straight fitting put on that guy there. All right, it's getting pretty close to being dark again, but I just wanted to show you guys exactly how this went in. So put that AN fitting there on the back side of the turbo core and the one on the block. And then I attached this nut and that nut to this hose and then threaded these parts into it. And the kit that I got came with about 2 feet, and I just cut it in half, used the 12 inches, and it seems to be working okay. Pretty snug in there. I'll probably have to tighten down the fittings a little more later, but I left everything loose because once this car goes to fabrication, they're probably going to want to take all this apart and probably cut that off, weld stuff in here, you know. There's no need for it to be super tight right now. I probably will figure out a way to get that feed hose attached to either the hose I've got in the back or redo everything that was on this side and go around, but we'll see. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I'm gonna have to move this line here because as you can see it's clearing, but it's so close to the turbo that it's probably going to melt this coating off. So I'm probably going to route it down to the front here, just like I did this side. Routed that line around, put a hole there in the tower. Probably going to do the same thing here. Round the same spot would probably be okay. Just route it behind the strut bar the way I did over there. Yeah, if I take the cover off, it looks pretty gnarly, I'm not gonna lie. To be honest, I cannot wait to get all this clutter out of here and redo these lines as well. This is set up for AC. It's just, I'm not gonna be using the factory stuff anymore, obviously, since it's for a Supra AC compressor and not a 350Z AC compressor. But yeah, looks sick as though. It's now the coolest part of the car is the engine. I really hope I have not been recording everything in slow-mo. Just look at that though, this is such a cool fucking view of the engine. It's probably going to be a thumbnail. Okay, now this wraps up the main installation content for this video, but I did want to mention a few things before the video is entirely over. So first of all, I wanted to share some points of interest and concerns about the 350Z going forward. With the new turbo setup in place, there are a lot of changes that are coming up with the removal of the previous twin turbo setup. So coming up, I'll need to get around to tidying up the water lines that we no longer need, since our new turbo is oil cooled only, which will have to determine what is needed where and what needs blocked off and whatnot. And after that comes the oil feed setup. To be honest, I'm not really too proud of the rubber hose coming off of the driver's side in the Circuit Sports cooler adapter. I'd like to come up with something more sturdy and robust, kind of similar to the new braided steel drain hose that's now underneath the turbo. And with that effort, I'd like to revise the brake line over on this side, like I mentioned earlier, where it's still nearly touching the turbo. And most importantly, and I've been thinking about this a lot, even since the twin turbo setup, is the state of the fuel lines on the back of the firewall. With the new exhaust, it'll be coming directly off of a hot turbo and routing directly in front of those fuel lines. I'm genuinely not confident that it will last long without catching fire. So all of that stuff that I just mentioned, I'm going to be planning to change and revise in the next video or two. And since our system is much more simple than it was before with the twin turbos, it's going to make it easier to identify where I need to place vacuum lines and route everything in regards to the wastegate and the intake plenum, whatever is necessary to get all of that tidied up as well. Now, as always, I'd like to take a second to thank you guys for watching this series to the extent that you have and all the support you've given me henceforth. I honestly cannot thank you guys enough for the support you gave me on the very first video that I posted and all the videos that came shortly after. The only reason I make these videos is to educate you guys on how to do the swap and make it easier for anyone attempting it going forward. Now, I know that this is a huge groan for a lot of you, but it would help the channel immensely if you liked, subscribed, shared, and watch these videos end to end. I hold a responsibility to make these videos interesting and educating for you guys, and any feedback that I can apply and any engagement with the channel is appreciated and welcome as it helps support the channel. Now, building this car has been very time consuming, patience testing, and incredibly expensive. I have spent nearly, I think, tens of thousands of dollars on this car by now. And it would mean the world to me if I could keep this channel alive and thriving with more frequent uploads. As of right now, it's still in the pre-monetization stages. So everything is funded, assembled, filmed, edited, and reviewed by myself between my full-time job and what free time I have available to make these videos for you guys to watch. I don't plan on giving up anytime soon because I've got a ton of video footage and planned videos going forward, and I would love for all of you guys to join for the ride along ahead. That's just all I have to say at the end of the video. If you have anything you need to say, any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to throw those in the comments or hit me up on my Instagram at ToyoAkateno. And as always, thank you guys very much for tuning in, reaching out, and being incredibly cool people. All of you, make the rest of your day a great day. Peace out, and I will see you guys in the next one.